Welcome, crew, to What Are Your Three, a Channel 3 podcast, where we take a member of the Channel 3 community, discuss 3 games of their choosing, go through some honorable mentions and some other odds and ends for some video game discussion. I'm Dan Tucker, and with me as always is El Ray.
What's going on, everybody? Tonight's guest I have to introduce with a story. When I first met as we chat online with Geodad, as a math teacher, I heard Geo, and I don't know if someone said it to me as a joke, or maybe I made it up myself, but I was like, oh, Geometry Dad, that's awesome. Geodad must also be a math teacher. And I held on to that thought for at least a year before someone, it may have been Geodad, someone corrected me. It was like it's Geodad, like Geodude, like the Pokemon, the obvious connection. And it broke my world when I realized it was in fact not Geometry Dad. So that's the long way to say hello, Geodad. Welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, guys, and thank you for having me. It's great to be here. And again, it's actually kind of funny that you talk about that because the whole origins of the name, to go not to take too much time. Yeah, it was supposed to be Pokemon based and back in the Mario Kart group, and then it just went off the rails. It was Geometry Dad, Geography Dad, Geology Dad, and the dads in the kart group just took it over. So I just accepted whatever name they gave me for that week. I am definitely a fan of math. Not a math teacher. I work at a bank, but definitely I've gone through all iterations of Geodad, and they all work for me.
I have to call out specifically, you are the master. You won pretty early on a wheel spin, one of the nice bonuses, and I don't mean to step on this if it's going to come up later, but the master of a certain tagline that is the envy of many. You want to tell us about that before we get started?
Definitely. Switch Gang. Hashtag Switch Gang. It's taken over. It's gone viral. No, it's kind of funny. Again, just naturally it happened on its own during some of the weekly events. And I got to give credit definitely to 022 who jumped in as well, one of the main members of Switch Gang. And when it just came alive in the chat on Twitch, and it came alive, and then I had that wheel spin for a while, that prize, and I wasn't sure what I would do. Some game that I like, some other TV show that I like, anything else video game related, and then after one of those chats on Twitch, I'm like, it's got to be Switch Gang. I mean, it made itself. It was an alley-oop for me. All the work was done for me. So Switch Gang was born from the chat, and here we are today, and we've got a good amount of members, growing, and I'm happy to see it.
And Ray and I are both proudly holding that tagline as well. So we have joined it. Even my son got in the ranks in the last week or two, but. Let us jump into the actual games we're here to talk about, which I guess we're actually going to come around to anyway, and I stomped on what Ray's going to cover, and he's going to let me have it for it later, but that's neither here nor there. So, what we're going to get into, though, is your first game. Your first game that you're sneaking a couple in here to. You got a lot of sneaking you're doing here when we're talking about 3 games. There's a little smuggling action taking place. So you want to talk about FIFA, but specifically 2 years. You bring up 1996, a long, long time ago, not 7 years ago, but 27 years ago for those of us of a certain age who math gets a little funky for. And you also brought up 2021. So I don't know which year you want to start with, but there's a reason you picked these 2 specific years, and I need to know why.
Yes, you are 100% correct. There are specific reasons why I picked them. So as you were saying, in a galaxy far, far away, 1996, FIFA for the Super NES, as I like to call it. And and this was actually the first soccer game I remember playing. And it was actually the first iteration where where FIFA used real names of players, real countries. So you could play in a World Cup. Obviously, 1994, we had a World Cup here in the United States. My family is Hispanic origins. I moved to New York. Oh, actually, I was born in New York. My family immigrated to New York many years before. But I grew up loving and playing soccer from 4 years old throughout my entire life. I still play pickup games with friends now. And so I played FIFA 96, got to play as Brazil, Italy, all those big names that we saw in 1994. And it was just my first real sports game that I can remember being younger. One of my favorite things actually was kind of funny because again, it was 1996. I wasn't too old. I wasn't too young either. And one of my memories too from the game, because those games back then, especially sports games, they're a little glitchy. I know that if I hit a shot from a specific point on the field, it was always a goal, no matter what. And so I would definitely take advantage of that little glitch in the game. On top of that, I don't know why, but the developers intentionally in the game put in a push button. It was the L bumper, and you would straight up shove a player to the ground. And so being, wanting to play and have a good time, I would turn the fouls off and I would just push everybody. And at one point you would push people and they would stay on the floor and they would get hurt. So again, being a younger kid, I thought it was hilarious. And so I would just rack up the scores and injure basically the entire team I was playing against. So I have fond memories of that. That was about it for 96, but I did want to, as my first memories of playing a soccer game. And then we're making a big jump.
Can I ask before you make that jump? I want to ask a few questions about 96. So first of all, was this, did you have friends come over? Was there some local play that took place? Were you battling the CPU? What was your typical opponent looking like?
It was battling the CPU, or I would battle either my brother or my dad. Yeah, it was definitely a mix. The majority of the time was CPU, at least when I wanted to win, because obviously I was the younger brother. And so whenever I played against my brother or my father, I would normally lose.
Oh, so you were used to being the right side of the screen anyway. You're always player 2. Parma Luigi, huh?
I was always player 2. I remember actually one time, now that you just brought back a memory, one time I did the trick because I had to. I would unplug my brother's remote for a little bit, and before when he turned away or it was halftime, just to get that couple seconds of a leg up on him before he plugged back in, and then he would continue to beat me.
Wow, that's usually the big brother move if the little brother's getting out of line. That's impressive that you went the other way with it. So who was your go-to club back then?
Oh, back then, just because, like I said, my family is Colombian, so I would either choose Colombia or I would go with Brazil, just being recent World Cup winners prior years before 96.
All right, well, let's make that jump then. Let's jump up 25 years and hit FIFA 2021.
Yes. FIFA 2021 came out in the midst of the pandemic. It came out in August 2020. And then obviously, jump ahead, you had asked me before, did I play with friends? Obviously in 96, I couldn't play online, but in that, that was a different case in August 2020. So come FIFA 21, obviously you had a lot of different game modes that you could play. There was career mode, you could play seasons. You had a lot of access to a lot more than just the international teams and those big names that you saw back in 96. So, first, obviously, you have your career modes. I have a favorite soccer team. I like to watch the Premier League in England. I'm an Arsenal fan. So I would pick my Arsenal team. I'd play through the season. I'd be the manager. I'd make my changes, formations, buying, selling players. And then what I liked also about 21 is there was also the international aspect of it. So I would play with my regular club team. But at the same time, during the season, I would get offers. Want to coach the Colombian national team? Do you want to coach the USA team? And so during my regular season, I would also be the coach of an international side where I would pick their players. I would choose who I wanted to be. I would participate in friendlies, participate in World Cups. So there was a lot of different things going on at the same time in the regular career mode. Besides the career mode, again, there's a lot of different sections within FIFA. The main mode I would play online with friends was the Pro Clubs mode. And basically the Pro Clubs mode is you could create an online team and you guys would each take control of one player and you would play together against other teams. You could get promoted, you could get relegated. And when you created your own player, you could level up your player. So you could change how tall you are, what position you wanted to play. But then the more games you played, you could increase your skills with passing, with shooting, with jumping, with defending, all those different things. And it's kind of, I have to throw it out there. When I saw this game mode about playing online, having a team, getting promoted, relegating, leveling up, it made me think of a certain Mario game that I was very excited about, that you could do something similar.
I tried. I tried to avoid this, Geodad. I almost brought it up when you said tackling in 96. I almost said, like a precursor to Strikers back when the game was good. I stopped. I stopped myself from saying it, and here you are. Talking about upgrading characters and all the nonsense they added to that terrible game. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
You couldn't stay away. And you're right. No matter what I do, I couldn't stay away. Right? I had to mention it. But again, going back, so I had this mode set up, Pro Clubs, with my friends, and there was a total of 9 of us. So I basically had an entire soccer team, and we each had a defined position. I would play in the midfield, for example, and then we had 3 that are here in the States, 3 that were in South America, and then another 3 that were in Europe. So again, all over the world, but even during the time of the pandemic, we were able to get together on a regular basis, everybody with their designated positions, get on chat and really be able to play together, which was great, especially with everything that was going on in the world at that time. And again, playing something like soccer when it's so many people playing together, there's so many intricacies to the game, passing, moving into space, crossing the ball, a lot of things going on that it really was a joy to play with other people who enjoyed the game as well, and we had a great time.
All right, I have one more question before we move on from FIFA, and that's involving the fact that EA is moving on from FIFA. What do they're calling it? EA Football Club or EAFC, something like that, coming into the next iteration they've got coming up here. What do you think the impact's going to be there? What do you expect to see?
Exactly. EAFC, I think is what it's going to be. And no, I'm excited for it too. Again, just because the name's not FIFA, the basic game is still going to be there. I was actually reading up on it before, and I mean, when it comes to the naming rights, Electronic Arts does everything. They already have agreements with all the teams, with all the leagues. None of that's going to change. It's actually a funny fact. In FIFA 2020, there were 3 or 4 Italian teams that didn't agree with contracts with EA. So EA just left the names of the clubs outside of the game, and they just called them something different. One of them was Juventus, which is where Cristiano Ronaldo played. So Cristiano Ronaldo was on this team, had a completely different name, and no one. It was a joke at the time, but really at the end of the day, it didn't affect the game. So I think it really, in this sense, it hurts FIFA more than anything else. I'm actually looking forward to. It's supposed to. I think they were going to come out with more information this summer about the game. So I'm definitely interested in what's gonna happen with that. But they've reported really all the same game basics that we're used to will still be in place. But I'll definitely be pre-ordering that game to see what it looks like.
All right, so we've slingshot back and forth here. We've gone from the Super Nintendo up to the modern generations. Let's take a swing back here. Let's head back to the PS1, PlayStation, the original Metal Gear Solid. So let's start off. Why did Metal Gear Solid make the number 2 spot on the list?
Okay, well, the first thing I gotta say, because it always stays in my head, is one of the lines from the game, Metal Gear. It's just how Snake says it, just always comes back into my head.
The delivery is important there. I dropped the ball on that one. Snake! I can do that for you if you want.
Oh, that's a good one. The Codex. And there's so many memorable moments in that game. But again, going back in that time, in 1997, I was living in New York, and my dad, from my dad's job, transferred him. And at first we were going to move to Jersey. Okay. And then also my parents were like, hey, we're moving to Santo Domingo. And I'm like, okay, what state is that in? Because I haven't heard of it. And actually, we ended up moving internationally to the Dominican Republic. So that was, again, 1997, started a new school in a new country with a new language. Again, my family's Hispanic, but I grew up in upstate New York. So my Spanish was not the best for someone living in a completely Hispanic Spanish-speaking country. So that, next Christmas, I got a PlayStation. Metal Gear Solid was one of the first games that I got. And again, too, it was a time in my life where video games really took care of me. They gave me a new world to explore, things to see, and moving is never easy, especially when at that point I was going into 6th grade at the time. So I really have a lot of fun memories of that game, and really video games just taking care of me. But with Metal Gear, the main thing that I remember from the game is it's the first game that I played that it felt like it wasn't just a game. It felt like I was in a movie. I was actually remembering, just the whole opening sequence. It's like a movie. There's credits. There's like all this opening. There's all these cutscenes. I actually remember I played through various games in the Metal Gear series, and it got to a point where I feel like 30, 40 minutes of a cutscene. Like I'm kind of ready to go back to the game. But again, there's just so much story, so much going on that you just get sucked into it. It was also my first stealth game. And really, I think it was one of the biggest stealth games that really just inspired so many things to come after it, from your Splinter Cells and ongoing. Some other games we'll probably discuss later on. So it really was just so much. I can remember the boss battles. Every single boss battle, I still remember some of those characters today, and all the different tactics you had to use against those different bosses, whether it was Revolver Ocelot and bullets ricocheting off of walls. One of my favorites was Sniper Wolf. You had to make sure you took your pill so that your aiming would be you wouldn't move as much when you were breathing, so you could shoot better.
Tell a 14-year-old learns about diazepam.
Exactly. And then, obviously everyone loves to talk about Psycho Mantis. That was just, I think that's when people maybe that was the start of rage quitting, because you couldn't hit the guy. You couldn't do anything. And again, there was no internet. You didn't know what to do.
Not only that, So I got to ask, we got to stop on Psycho Mantis for a second here. So this was your first game on the PlayStation?
Yes.
So you didn't get the experience. So I had, what was it? I think it was Castlevania Symphony of the Night. So if you have other games saved on your game card, especially Konami games, Psycho Mantis starts talking to you about your other save files that are on your memory card to boot too. So not only like you can't work your way around him, he starts talking about like, oh, I see you like playing games about vampires or whatever. He says something to that effect that like references the other games you're playing. But I didn't mean to cut you off there, but I couldn't get away from Psycho Mantis without having like the that occurred with that.
Exactly. It was so groundbreaking at the time. Speaking of, I still have my PlayStation memory card. I don't have my PlayStation anymore, but I remember one of the Channel 3 quests. I didn't have an answer to what's your favorite. It's not. I wouldn't say it's my favorite, but it's probably the oldest piece of hardware I have, other than my Super NES itself. I have the memory card, and part of me is like, man, I wish I need to get some kind of USB adapter or something. Everything on there is probably corrupted, but I'm just curious, like, what's even on that memory card at this point?
You know, the funny thing you said, you called out the credits, and it's funny now looking back on it and how much Kojima's involved with like Guillermo del Toro, and I think half of his podcast is, you know, talking to people like Jordan Peele, and he's got this not infatuation, but like you can see where he's blending that entertainment piece in, and you know, even the ridiculous stuff like Conan O'Brien's in Death Stranding. It's just funny to think about now. Like you said, it's such a cool opening credits, and you know, the Hideo Kojima production, and finally get to the title reveal eventually and all that stuff. That was pretty cool. So I got two questions then. One, did you ever go back? This was your first stealth game, but did you ever go back and play the original Metal Gear on Nintendo?
I have not actually. It's actually on my bucket list to go back and check it out.
Yeah, it's a much different dynamic, but you should do that just so you can see what the jump was. And you know, we have all these games now that are like, oh, they reboot or kick something up. Like, yeah, you go from the God of War that was on the PS2 up to God of War on PS4 and 5. You're like, oh yeah, look at the way they rebooted that. But if you look and see what they did from the Nintendo onto Metal Gear Solid, it's fantastic to see. But the other question I had was, did you continue with the series at all after the original Metal Gear Solid?
Yes, I played 2. I played 3 Snake Eater. The last one I played was Guns of the Patriots. And then after that, that's why like Guns of the Patriots was like watching them. Again, it felt like watching a movie. That's the game where I was like, dude, this cutscene's like too long. Then they start getting into the VR missions and things like that. So I didn't play any of those games. I had not played the Phantom Pain. But then part of me thought about it, I was like, oh, I wonder if they would do a remake or bring it back. I would be interested to maybe get back into the series.
Y'all be curious. They're doing a lot of the Silent Hill. Bring a lot of Silent Hill back. I'm curious to see if where this all lands after their kind of fallout with Kojima, and now Konami's coming back into video games. I'm waiting to see what they do.
It's definitely exciting. Again, the way everything they did was groundbreaking. I remember just so many, anything from like the item wheels on one side of the screen to the weapon wheel on the other side of the screen. And I remember, again, when finishing the game, there were multiple endings. You could get the bandana from Meryl, which you could replay, and then you have the infinite ammo, or if you save the doctor, then you would get invisibility. And obviously with a game like Stealth, I don't want to go back and play again with invisibility. But all these things, and one of the things that actually stays in my mind as well, too, again, talking about that cinematic, one of the first times you see the cyborg ninja, when he just basically terrorizes an entire group of soldiers. And it's one of those, like, it's a hallway scene, and the way the camera moves, like it takes me back to, like, you know, one of those first times in Resident Evil when you turn around and see the zombie. Like, it's just one of those images that stays in your head, and that just, again, it just totally sucks you into the moment.
Join us on the Bucket and Hoosier Show, the podcast that's all about community and competitive Rocket League.
If you're new to Rocket League, it's a high-flying, fast-paced game that combines soccer with rocket-powered cars. It's a game that's easy to pick up, but difficult to master.
And that's where our guests come in. We're talking about the best of the best in the Rocket League community to learn about their journeys, strategies, and tips for success.
Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, we've got something for everyone. So sit back, relax, and join us as we explore the exciting world of competitive Rocket League.
Join us live Monday evenings at twitch.tv/Bucket and Hoosier, and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts to catch past episodes. Be sure to hit the follow and notification button so you know when new content has been posted.
All right, with that, we move on to game number 3, the Assassin's Creed Ezio Trilogy. So that would include Assassin's Creed 2, Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, and Assassin's Creed Revelations, because Assassin's Creed forgot how to count after 2 for a little while there, as they were putting this story together. So, first question, are you playing these, or did you play this on the Switch? Like, when you said the trilogy, did you buy the trilogy, or did you play these games originally when they came out?
I played these games originally when they came out, but actually I just purchased the trilogy yesterday because I'm going to play through it again because I realized the entire thing is there on Switch. But that's why I went ahead and just went with the trilogy.
You cannot bill us for that.
So tell me about
hang on, Ray. We just gotta make it clear. He can't bill us for that. I feel like this is our fault. The timing of him sending his list and that purchase is not good. We're not liable.
Listen, it's a great trilogy. There's nothing wrong with buying it again and playing it. It's a great set of 3 games. And I say tongue in cheek, there's reasons that they went 2 and then played 2 more games before 3 because they knew they were going to make this trilogy out of it first before starting a new story. So tell me about it. We got Italy for 2 games and then Constantinople for the 3rd. Tell me about the whole experience with these games.
Again, same thing. And going back, we saw it in Metal Gear. We're seeing it now in Assassin's Creed. The depth of the story. You're with the same character throughout maybe 40, 50 years of his life. I mean, the first, I was actually playing a little bit of it yesterday. The game starts and you see him being born in one of your first trips back in the Animus. Ezio Auditore de Firenze. So it was great to really see the beginning of a character and see him go through all these things in his life and being a part of that in the memory sequences and then getting all the way to the end of his life. And I really enjoyed the time jumping in the Assassin's Creed series. It's something they've strayed away from. But back then, you were playing as Desmond, you would jump out of the Animus, you would do things outside. At one point too, it was one of those moments, jumping a little bit ahead to Brotherhood, where Ezio is talking to Desmond. He knows that, he kind of says my entire life purpose was to give you information. I don't know where you are. I know you can hear me. And so it's one of those like breaking the fourth wall. It's like one of the first times I guess I had experienced that in gaming, that it was like, wow, again, this story just blew me away. And then obviously going back to the stealth portions, the hidden blade, the whole Italian culture and climbing those buildings, the parkour. I went to Europe with my wife before we had kids. And it was after I played this game. So it was a lot of times I was like, oh, I climbed that building. I jumped off of that building. I could have jumped into that pile of hay over there. It was constantly me just joking about all the architecture in Italy that I had already been exposed to, even though it was our first time there in person.
It's amazing how well they map the games out, because I mean I feel like now games are so detailed and they can make these worlds, but for that time, I mean you knew where you were. They weren't making things up. You go to the Colosseum, you were in Florence, you were in Rome. Do you ever just kind of like walk around and just appreciate the settings of the game as you played?
Exactly, and that was my favorite part too about the Assassin's Creed franchise at that point, the city-based play, because there was so much going on in the city, the architecture, the people, everything you could do, how you could blend through crowds in some of the later games. Again, like you said, a lot of attention to detail that I really appreciated and just fell in love with.
Did you play any of the multiplayer with Brotherhood and Revelations? Because they had a very different online multiplayer than kind of like the games at the time.
I actually didn't. I tried once, but again, I didn't have the best internet connection back at that point. So I got booted a lot, kind of like you in Fortnite. But but it definitely was the one that I did try. I tried it with Unity, which was the one in Paris, in France, I think it was, where it was like co-op and you would do missions online. And I thought that was a very interesting concept. And like you're saying, it's Assassin's Creed tried to do multiplayer differently. It wasn't a shoot up. It's not it's not a third person kind of shooter game or a battle royale like we see nowadays. So I can definitely appreciate that they tried to do something different. I'm not gonna say it wasn't necessarily a complete success, but props are definitely trying something different, because I think you always want to try something different. You want to try to be on the cutting edge and see what works and what doesn't. So I definitely hope that online is something that maybe they try again in the future, but using the lessons that they've learned.
Have you played any of the other Assassin's Creed besides 3? Because you said you brought up Unity. Did you play the original, or did you play kind of any other ones afterwards?
Yeah, I basically played 1 all the way up to Valhalla. I've played all the main ones on PlayStation. I think the only ones I've missed there was one for like I want to say maybe the PS Vita or something like that. There's probably only one or two that I haven't played, but most recently, I finished Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla.
Did you buy the DLC for Valhalla? Because they added something like 30 extra hours with this kind of like online world Valhalla.
I did not play. I didn't actually, because honestly, I kind of lost a little bit of interest after Valhalla. It didn't really do it for me.
So there's a change though, right? There's a change from the Ezio Trilogy and the original one, Altair, that has that really stealth approach to it. The story was streamlined. You know you could do extra stuff, but you had your main storyline. But they jumped to kind of open world somewhat with the newer games. Do you like that open world jump, or did you like really like the kind of the main storyline stealth mode of the first games?
I really like the story mode and the stealth of it. I mean, I do appreciate the open world, which the Assassin's Creed 2 does have. There's other side missions and things that you can do, and I did appreciate that. At one point there was a tower defense element in the game. There was even you have your villa, you could update your villa, and you get your income. And even in Brotherhood, you can actually hire assassins, send them out on missions. So there's a lot of other stuff that you could do that I definitely appreciated. I just think the newer Assassin's Creed went more into the open world than the main story. And the main story, again, from my personal gaming experience, I really enjoy that main story. I love doing other things in the open world, but what I'm mostly invested in is that character development, that main story on how that character got there, what's he doing, why is he doing it, and let me help him do it.
Yeah, I agree. I think you hit the point that a lot of people talk about, that we played one character for 3 games. And you really, you got to see his whole life, his development. You play with him. He's a teenager when you start. He's a teenager that runs around, and by the end, he's old man trying to teach everyone. So that development was really what made that thing, right? It's the character that really made the game, right? Just kind of you got to grow with him.
Exactly, and just the emotional weight that it carried when I was playing Revelations and all these things were happening. I was like, again, I've invested a lot of time in this character, and seeing everything that's going on, like it's definitely a payoff. I enjoyed every moment of it, but I felt connected to that character.
At the mention of tower defense, we're going to jump into your honorable mentions. We're going to talk about 3 games that didn't quite make the cut of your 3 here. The first one we're going to start with, Plants vs. Zombies. So this one leads off your runner-up, or the ones you just want to have a little chat about here. Where'd this one fall in here?
As you were talking, I mentioned a little bit of tower defense before, and I definitely like the tower defense. It's a different kind of game. I really enjoy tower defense games. One of them, I've given a quick shout out, was Bloons. I don't know if you guys ever played Bloons with the monkey shooting darts at balloons. That took me back. But Plants vs. Zombies, I remember I played it on PC. This is back when it was PopCap, before all the other sequels and Garden Warfare and all the other stuff came out, and the microtransactions. This was the original one that I really spent a lot of time playing and enjoying, just for that tower defense aspect, setting up my defenses, being able to upgrade plants. I remember in the original game, I actually had a garden. You would plant the seeds, and it would create the new plants that you could use later on. And just setting up, strategizing how I'm going to see, seeing what zombies I'm going to see in the next level, and I can adjust accordingly. And what I liked about the original as well was the different game modes. You see them a little bit now, but for example, those levels where you only have one kind of plant that you can use, for example, it'd be like the cherry bomb, or the levels where you had to, it was an escalator, so it would just give you random plants. That's what you had to use. There was no setting up your own defense. You used what they gave you. And one of my actually favorite modes was when you went to the options, it was basically there was a bunch of vases set up, and you would break the vases, and every vase would open some kind of enemy. Or if it was a green vase, it would give you some kind of power up or some kind of special plant you could use, and you didn't know what you were going to get. So I always thought there was such a random, I could always go back and play again, because every time I played it would be different. It wasn't the same tower defense every single time.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I just remember that boss battle at the end.
Oh yeah, what was it, Dr. Zomboss, I think it was. I remember only because my son just replayed
Dr. Zomboss on the roof.
Did you figure that out on your own? I felt like that was a really frustrating final boss fight of trying to figure out, like, oh, you got to freeze this and pepper that, and yeah, that was another conveyor. Like you mentioned, the conveyors. You don't get to pick your plants. You can do anything. You just got to kind of manage what's on the conveyor, not let the conveyor get backed up, use it, but still have a couple in reserves. You need to have pots on the roof, so that way you actually have something to plant them in, and the pots are another, asset management situation.
Exactly. It was frustrating. I remember the part where he would just run down to the end of the screen and destroy all of your plants with just one fell swoop, and you had to fill in everything again. And if I'm not mistaken, you were on the roof, so it's not like you were. I don't think there were any lawnmowers. I gotta remember, not on the roof.
Yeah,
but it was definitely
you had the
frustrating.
you had the scrubbers, but
that.
I know you had the scrubbers, but I don't remember if you had them in the final boss fight or not. Now that you mention it,
it was a lot of fun. It was.
So, what was your go-to plant in the game? The one that if the one you were going to pick first, you knew it was going to be there. Not the sunflower. You needed the sunflower, but what was the one that if you went into a level you knew you were going to go with?
I know it was the double P shooter for sure. It was 200 sunshine, so it wasn't cheap. But yeah, at that point I had double sunflowers, so I would send those double sunflowers, get extra, and I would set up my double P shooter, and I'd be good to go.
Did you have a most hated level? I know what mine was. That's why I have to ask if you had a most hated level or setup in the game.
I remember a level that I disliked very much, and I don't remember if it was on the mobile or on the original version. But I hated the ice levels, and there were portals, so they would go down to the ice, and they would switch from one lane to another when they hit those certain portals, and it would totally mess me up because I'd have everything set on one lane. They would take that portal and it would just pop up somewhere else. So that was definitely annoying and took me a lot of time to adjust.
And did you play the Endless Survival? And how far did you get if you did?
I did, but I don't remember how far I got.
See, I only remember...
Makes me want to replay it now.
I only remember because I had this on PC, as you mentioned, but I also had this on PS3, so it had trophies attached to it. And I remember I had to get to level 25 on the Endless Survival, which was problematic to get to. So good luck if you can get to 25. I did it. I finally did get to it, but it's not easy on PlayStation versus PC, because when you're on PC, you can just, use it now. Like you said, I'm playing on a tablet or a phone. I got my touch screen and, able to just move the fingers or move the mouse around, but it's sweaty using a PlayStation controller trying to do that one real time.
No, I can't imagine, because I played PC, and now when I do play every now and then, I play mobile, so I can just click and drag.
Yeah, time to get that endless run going. I couldn't figure out how to fairly make a challenge for the week on that one, because you have to have played the entire game through, and if you buy all the stuff from the psycho neighbor, then you've really got some jacked plants to go further. There's no level playing ground for that one, but I want to do it someday.
Next game on the list, we go to Fall Guys, which is just a fan favorite over here. I'm going to start with this. When did you start playing Fall Guys? Did you play with Channel 3? Were you playing before that?
Yes, I definitely was playing before that. I jumped into Fall Guys in Season 2, the medieval season, which was back in November of 2020. So again, in the midst of the pandemic, I had a friend I hadn't spoken to who lived in Boston. He's like, hey, you got to try this game, because we used to watch Wipeout, or we used to watch MXC Extreme Elimination Challenge, which was always a fan favorite. He's like, you like those shows? We used to watch them. You need to try this game. And at that point, it was free in PlayStation. Then they started charging for it. Again, now it's free again. So I was able to jump in nice and early. And that was the Friday night routine. I would jump in with my friend from Boston, a couple of his friends, and we'd jump in and do some squads. And it would always be a good time. It would be a great time. And that's why Channel 3, I was able to jump in and be like, okay, I know my Fall Guys. And you guys saw, I had my wins at the beginning, but then everybody catches up and they grind it out. And now I'm back down with being mediocre. What's that term they use, Ray? Competitively mediocre?
Aggressively
mediocre.
There you go.
That's the Mad Harry term right there.
And if I make a final, I'm happy at this point, because the level has risen so much. But it's great to see.
What is your favorite course? What's the one that you want to see when you're playing?
Oof. There's so many. I would say my favorite race, at least, is Big Fans, and then final I have to go with Jump Around. Yeah, Dan doesn't like Big Fans. I remember that. I remember memeing that one time.
No, you see, here's my problem. I was playing with the kids, and my psychotic son pulls up Ray's level. We're just doing some private... Yeah, he just wanted to kind of goof off, show us the levels he built. That psychopath pulls Ray's level back up. Who does that?
I was surprised that it was so tough for people. Because once I built it, but obviously I was completing it piece by piece to make sure I could do it. So when it said, all right, I'll prove that you can do it, I did it in one shot. It's like
You
30
also-
seconds it took me, and I was like, oh, this will be easy for everybody. It took me 30 seconds. Like,
Yeah, you
this'll be
also
fun.
weren't dealing with the hug fest of Channel 3, 20 Channel 3 psychos running at it either.
All right, so that's actually a question on my list. Geodad, what's your opinion on hugging? What's your take on hugging? I had that on my list of questions here.
Hugging is great when it's not happening to you.
I agree. I think hugging is great all the time. Sometimes I feel personally attacked. I try to hug as a general rule. Sometimes I feel personally attacked by the hugs, but I try to hug just in general. I don't try to target one person.
In that sense, I'm a purist. I try not to hug. I let everyone kind of do their own thing. But as you said, at some point it can become a little personal, and you're trying to get in there. And I've had my fair share of hugs with both of you. I mean, Dan hugged me this past Wednesday and threw me off, and it happens. I mean, that's the thing. And I appreciate Fall Guys because there's obviously a level of skill at Fall Guys, but there's a large amount of luck that's going to be involved as well.
Hey, I'm sorry, but I earned that W. I earned that W this past Wednesday.
That's right, Dan got it.
You definitely did.
So, talk about creative mode. What are you hoping to see out of creative? Because right now, it's just races, and even racing. There's a couple of obstacles that they haven't put in yet. They've kept it kind of simple just to see how it goes. What do you want to see happen in creative mode?
I don't know. I definitely want to get into survival to see what kind of custom builds we can do for survival. I know there's a couple of ideas already been thrown out, but I'm excited when that comes. And I get it. They're going bit by bit just to make sure nothing breaks. But I'm definitely excited for that. And at 1.2, I really want to get custom squads in there too. Like, something like what we've done with Fortnite. And I think it would be great to get some squad-based games in there as well, or even in private lobbies, so we can take advantage of that a bit more.
All right, and we move to the last game on the honorable mention list. Of course, I think people would have rioted if this wasn't talked about with you on. We have to talk about Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. So before we talk about Mario Kart 8, I'll just start with this. Were you playing Mario Kart before this game? Were you playing any of the earlier versions of it, or was it something you just kind of did a little bit, and then Mario Kart 8 is really where it caught on for you?
Yeah, I mean, like any other gamer, I definitely played it. The only iteration that I owned was Mario Kart for the Wii. Because again, I had a Super NES. From Super NES, I jumped into PlayStation 1, 2, 3, 4. Then after that, I got a Wii. So then I definitely enjoyed playing Mario Kart. It's something to play with friends and family. But, I like to prefer to Mario Kart 8 for you Matrix fans. It was my red pill into gaming most recently. Because it was the red pill that took me into the dad gaming and that took me into Channel 3 and to where we are today. Because a couple years ago, my wife bought me a Switch. And I'm like, oh, this will be fun, she got me Mario Kart. I can play Mario Kart with some friends, And then little did I know that, I followed this Instagram page for the dad. Oh, they have a gaming account too. Let me go check it out. And from, one thing led to another. And I'm in these Facebook leagues and weekly tournaments and kart gangs. And I'm doing time trials. I'm making up a nickname for myself that everybody gets wrong. And then Channel 3 comes around, and I'm all into Channel 3. I have my caution using tilt control shirt over here representing. And so really it took me down the rabbit hole, and I loved every minute of it.
Describe the Wolfpack experience for people that don't know about the Wolfpack. Let them know explain to them about real Mario Kart.
And that's the thing. I learned about real Mario Kart and the Wolves Den because
I think we all did.
Yeah, I thought I was always again a decent gamer, and I thought I was pretty good at Mario Kart. I usually would beat my friends at Mario Kart, and I could hold my own. And so when there was a Mario Kart group, I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll do okay. I'll do decent. And I just realized how terrible I was at the game, and that it was just like it's shame. But hey, you got to play with the best if you want to be the best. So in that sense, those Wolves Den, and two, the part that I appreciate about so much is one of the things when you go to Channel 3 is just the environment, the people. There's zero toxicity. People get chippy sometimes because, you're throwing red shells at each other. It's going to happen. But one of my favorite things about Wolves Den, I know I'm going to get my butt kicked, but just being in that chat and talking with those guys, I talk to some of these guys more than I talk to friends in real life. So it's been a great experience. And through it all, I think I've become I've become a better Mario Kart player, a real Mario Kart player. That the fact I make the joke, like I can't play with my friends or family because they don't want to play with me anymore because I'm a little bit better now. So if I want to play Mario Kart, it needs to be with a dad gamer. It needs to be in Channel 3.
What's the go-to character in kart build?
It's going to be DK. When I jumped into the league.
Are you following along? Are you following along with the changes of the carts, or are you using Donkey Kong with whatever cart you feel like still?
Oh no, I'm going Donkey Kong Bitty Buggy. It's just what I've been comfortable with. I haven't checked really the new stats. I haven't really tried them out. But when I got into the league at the very beginning, I was playing a lot with Mickey Wins, and he's a big DK guy. So I was playing a lot of DK in the beginning. I got comfortable with it. It's my go-to.
All right. So with that, we've finished the honorable mentions, and we're gonna move on, look into the future. One game you are looking forward to, and we have on the list here, Assassin's Creed Mirage, which we talked about the Ezio Trilogy earlier. And this game, they still say it's coming out this year, but we are getting close to June, so I don't know if this year is still a thing. It looks like, from what they've shown, that they're trying to go back to kind of like that old Assassin's Creed style of hiding in the crowds and using the hidden blade and stuff like that. So what are you looking for with Assassin's Creed Mirage? What are you hoping for?
Exactly that, right? Really, just for them to go back to their roots. It's. I feel like I don't want to say it, but I feel like they've saturated the IP a lot, and it's just every year we're getting a new game, we're getting a new time period, which very cool time periods, very cool weaponry, a lot of cool things going on. But I feel like it's just completely changed the kind of game. So I'm really hoping that Mirage goes back to what used to work, at least personally for me. And I know some people, again, there's people on both sides of the argument, but I really would like to see the old school kind of gameplay and stealth that you can always run into a room and fight everybody, but there's other ways to do things. And so I really think that creative part of it and using your tools and your environment around you leads to a different kind of gameplay experience that I'm hoping to see with Mirage.
It's funny you said that they saturated the IP because they basically come out and said they're going to put 4 games out. This is just the first one. Like there's going to be a mobile game, one set, one in Japan, which is supposed to be more of the Valhalla style open story, even though Mirage is using a character from Valhalla essentially in their game. But so it looks like they're trying to open up every direction at the same time. So when you say saturate, I will be interested to see if they can kind of pull that whole thing off.
It's going to be interesting for sure. I'm a little nervous, but let's see how it goes. Like I said, all those delays are not starting it off in the best light so far.
You know what? I'll say, Tears of the Kingdom got delayed. Even Hogwarts Legacy was delayed. And so far, it seems like delays now are them saying, hey, we are actually paying attention and taking care of these games. And I hope that trend continues. But I have hope.
Agreed.
All right, Geo. One of the things we do during the course of the podcast is we take a question from the Channel 3 history books, pick it for you to discuss. It's a little surprise for you. We don't tell you what's coming. The quest that we have picked for you to discuss. What is your favorite game that is unpopular with the masses?
Oh, Serial Cleaner. Serial Cleaner, actually, a little known game. I actually used to watch G4 Tech TV, and I remember watching Jessica Chobat, and they had the Attack of the Show, and it was one of those minds where they had a section for indie games. It was like, I'll try these indie games out, and I saw something. I saw Serial Cleaner. Again, it was a different kind of game, and it was more of a puzzle game. It's a little dark. You're essentially, again, you're a cleaner for murder scenes, and basically you have a vacuum and you have a set of tools, and you have to clean up the murder scene, pick up any evidence that they might find the killer. But it's an active police investigation. So there's people walking around with flashlights, they're looking at things, and again, it's one of those, going back to what we were saying before, using the environment, hiding in closets, using different aspects to clean up all the blood, hide the murder weapon, do all these things for each level, and progressively gets harder and harder. So I'm going to put that because it's not a very well-known game. Again, I did hear about it on G4 back when that was still a thing, but it's something I hadn't seen. I think I actually had mentioned to you guys to add it to the library at that time because it wasn't there. But it's still giving it, I have it on PS4 and definitely enjoyed it. It's a different kind of game.
And the final question that we ask everybody, what's been your favorite feature on Channel 3 so far?
There have been so many good answers to this question, so many things I could say, but if I'm going to have to pick one, I'll pick something a little more recent. I've been loving seeing the clubs get more active. So I'm seeing the chats available, seeing the quests in the clubs. I think there's a lot of opportunity there to branch out and even have your club admins that can add their own quests and do those kinds of things to get more participation on the site and people involved in different kinds of games. Again, going back, I remember when I saw the Mario Kart group on Facebook, I think that was almost kind of like a precursor to what Channel 3 can provide different kinds of groups when, doing all these things on Excels and then tracking these things outside or sending Facebook messages, where you have something like Channel 3 that you can house, you can do brackets, you can house scores, you can do all these different things. So I think with some of the newer features, I'm definitely liking where the clubs is going and looking forward to joining more clubs.
And with that, we've made it to the end of another Channel 3 What Are Your 3 podcasts. Thank you, Geodad, for being our guest today. You can find the podcast at c3.gg/podcast, dropping Wednesday mornings, 3:33 a.m. Eastern on all the major platforms, including Spotify, Google Podcast, and Apple Podcasts. I am El Rey. The Dan Tucker here puts it all together, and our executive producer, Joel Willis. Have a good day, everybody.